Hey y'all, welcome to the channel. Today we're checking out what did the British ever do for us scientifically?
What did the British, ever do for us scientifically?
Apart from the sanitation, the medicine, education, wine, public order, irrigation, road,
The
the freshwater
aqueduct.
system and public health, what have the Romans ever done for us?
Nowadays, our education system regards the British as brutal colonists who enslaved populations, subjugated the world. Out of roughly 200 countries in the world today, the Brits colonised, settled or invaded about 90% of them.
Wow.
Which I think is fairly impressive, or at least I think the Romans would think it was impressive.
They would.
But would we have been better off without those bastard Brits? Now, as it happens, they may have some redeeming features. If you look at their scientific contribution, at least. Now, this is a slightly different video to normal, and I'm going to talk about the British scientific and technological achievements.
All right.
And inventions, even though I could mention trivial things like the British invention of some of the best countries in the world, like Australia, Canada, Singapore, New Zealand, America. Well, maybe not invented, but they were certainly highly influenced.
What?
Or even the only decent country in the Middle East, which is Israel, courtesy of Mr. Balfour, and many other countries that have a great deal to be proud of, such as Malaya, South Africa, Fiji, Kenya, Botswana, Sri Lanka, India, all wonderful British creations. But we're a science channel, and we're going to look at science.
So, I don't know if I agree that Israel's the only good country in the Middle East. I mean, that's a broad generalization. Who is this guy? Is he Australian? Oh, Dr. Peter Ridd. He's Australian. He's a physicist and a former professor at James Cook University in North Queensland, Australia. He got fired for refusing to take down confidential information which he had placed publicly online. The university denied that the dismissal was over Ridd's views on climate change. Ridd told Sky News that although scientists genuinely believe that there are problems with the reef, I think they're emotionally attached to their subject, and you can no longer trust their stuff. Okay, so he might be a climate change denier? Is that what it's all about? It sounds like he's saying, hey everybody, the Great Barrier Reef is fine, stop freaking out about it. So I don't know. I don't know who this guy is, but we're going to listen to him for a few minutes and see what he has to say.
Now, the list is long of scientific achievements, and I'm only going to look at the really big ones and some of the more important ones. Let's start. Let's start with transport and engines. So the British invented the railways, steel tracks, railway locomotives. In fact, wherever the British went, railways followed. So they put in railways in Germany, India, South America, and of course everybody copied that. Then we have the modern bicycle, initially called the Rover Safety Bicycle, apparently. Chain drive, caster steering, and relatively small wheels, invented by the Rover Company.
So they used to look like this, I think, with one giant wheel and one tiny wheel, which you can now get for $2,600. No thanks. That seems like the dumbest design. How do you even get up on that thing? Maybe they were trying to make it like a horse, like the closest thing they could get to a horse? Maybe? But it seems like such a dumb design now. Great work, Brits. Thanks for the bicycle. A bicycle that I can actually ride. Now,
the British obviously invented the first engines, which was the steam engine, and that broke us free from back-breaking animal and human-powered devices. Now, while the British were inventing the steam engine, they, of course, had to invent the piston. And more importantly, the piston ring that seals the piston, a truly remarkable technological invention, which is even now being developed further. And
I didn't even know that was
piston ring is the basis for petrol engines and diesel engines, in fact. Virtually every engine. So no Brits, no engines. Next, they invented the first engine-powered ships, obviously steam-powered. Ships' propellers, steel ships, the steam turbine, jet engine. Yes, the Germans independently invented it in the Second World War. The turboprop engine, invented by the Brits, the first turboprop aircraft. So if you don't fly in an airplane powered by a jet engine, which was largely due to the Brits, it's a turboprop airplane, which was invented by the Brits.
Hang on, what about the Wright brothers? They were American. They had a propeller on their plane, right? Although their plane was made of like paper and sticks of wood.
We also have the modern car layout. Front drive, transverse engine, independent suspension, CV joints on the front wheels. Before that, companies tried all sorts of arrangements. So, for example, the Germans famously had the engine and everything at the back. But since 1959, most cars use the Mini Minor equivalent.
It was the Mini that did that first? What? I gotta check his facts. Parhard and Levasseur made autos with pedal-operated clutch, a chain transmission leading to a chain. Think they were French, so I don't know.
Cars use the Mini Minor equivalent. Ever been on a vehicle that uses steel wheels? Pretty uncomfortable, but don't worry, the Brits invented the pneumatic tyre.
Oh.
So it looks like the British have invented pretty much everything that runs on the road. They didn't invent the road, that's just about it. Well, actually they did. Tarmac roads, or tarmacadam, was invented by a Scot and a Welshman.
Okay.
Then we have steel bridges.
Okay.
And here's a very interesting one, the modern traffic roundabout in the 1960s. Now, you might think that roundabouts have been around since way before the 1960s, but the Brits had the inspired idea of changing the rules for the roundabout. In other words, yield to enter, which massively increases the efficiency of the roundabout.
Wow, what was it like before?
Cat's eye reflector.
Don't yield to enter? What?
Caterpillar tracks, which the Brits invented with cat's eye reflector.
Cat's eye. Oh, the reflectors in the middle of the road that reflect whenever your headlights shine on it. Oh, okay.
Caterpillar tracks, which the Brits invented just before they invented the tank.
What's a caterpillar track? Oh, I guess it's the tank track thing, right?
Tracks, which the Brits invented just before they invented the tank. So there's much more we could talk about in terms of transport technology, but we must move on to other industrial
Great work, Brits.
and technological stuff. Now, of course, Britain famously started the Industrial Revolution in the 18th and 19th century, and it's debated why it started in the United Kingdom, but clearly there was something special going on that made that spark. And of course, it started in the textile and agricultural industry. In the textiles, they invented the flying shuttle, powered looms, the spinning mill for making threads. In fact, if you didn't have...
What? A significant invention of the Industrial Revolution was the flying shuttle, which was invented by John Kay in 1733. The flying shuttle was used with the traditional hand loom and helped improve weaving efficiency and reduced labor needs because it could be operated with only one operator. All right. This is the birth of the robot, y'all.
In fact, if you didn't have the Brits, you don't have the very fine modern clothing which we have now, which is also incredibly cheap compared with what it used to be. In the agricultural industries, there are all sorts of mechanical devices like the mechanical seed drill, the haymaking threshing machine, but also really important things like phosphate fertilizer production, selective breeding.
Sir John Bennett Lawes was an English entrepreneur and agriculture scientist. He developed a superphosphate that would mark the beginnings of the chemical fertilizer, and, well, I don't know if that's a good thing. I guess it is, but also not.
But that's just the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. If you're going to have an Industrial Revolution, you need a big build buildings. And so the British gave us Portland cement, a revolutionary type of cement. Where would we be without it? Then we have things like steel boring machines, which led to the modern lathe, which is ubiquitous in metal cutting. Hyper-accurate machines for measuring things. The
Henry Maudslay, a pioneering British engineer, invented or significantly contributed to the development of several key inventions and advocated for standardization in manufacturing. That's a big help. These advancements revolutionized machining processes and played a crucial role in the Industrial Revolution. Yeah, a quarter-inch screw is a quarter-inch screw is a quarter-inch screw, thanks to this guy.
You cannot have modern engineering unless you have hyperfine methods for measuring things.
Yeah.
We have stainless steel, the production of polyethylene.
Oh, stainless steel. That's a big one. These are some smart motherfuckers.
Very famous practice, plastic used in just
Oh, polyethylene. These are some smart motherfuckers.
Just about everything. The steel hammer for forging steel and making it much stronger.
Put a
The
person
Bessemer
under there.
steel process, the first mass production of steel effectively. And then the mass production of glass using the now ubiquitous virtually.
The mass production of what?
And then the mass production of glass using the now ubiquitous virtually tin flotation method.
Okay.
All right, let's go a little bit electrical. So the first long-distance communication cables were invented by the Brits, the coaxial cable. This was used for underwater cables to link the UK to America and other places. The first intercontinental communication, the birth of the internet in a sense. It was the first time that we could communicate all around the world.
I mean, that's a stretch.
The telephone.
But yeah.
Alexander Graham Bell was a Scotsman.
But didn't he invent it while he was in America? History is confusing. Why can't we keep it simple? Scottish-born Canadian-American inventor. Let's share him.
Television, liquid crystal, cavity magnetron. You've never heard of the cavity?
I don't know what that is. Nope.
It's in your microwave. But probably more importantly, the first radars, to a large extent, used the cavity magnetron, which was a revolution.
Okay.
Then if we go a little bit medical, we've got CAT scanners, ultrasound scanners.
Wow.
The first town to have chlorinated water.
In 1897, the town of Maidstone, England was the first to have its entire water supply treated with chlorine.
How about the first electronic programmable computer to crack German codes in the Second World War?
Colossus was a set of computers developed by British code breakers in the years 1940, blah, blah.
Accurate navigation using highly accurate clocks, the chronometers, and the first workable atomic clock.
Yo, these are some smart motherfuckers.
Then we have the World Wide Web.
Berners-Lee developed the first web browser and web server, laying the foundation for what we now know as the World Wide Web. Look at that computer.
A gas stove, tin cans.
What? Wow.
And a really big one. I know you've been wondering where I get to this one. An alarm clock that makes tea.
Oh.
Again.
What? These are some smart motherfuckers.
Let's go on to fundamental science, the stuff that all other science and technology actually depends upon. But before we do that, maybe just like and subscribe.
That's a good idea.
How about the discovery of the proton, neutron, and electron? The three building blocks of, well, frankly, just about everything. All discovered by Brits.
Just
and the
about
Brits also
everything?
discovered the opposite of matter, which is antimatter, by Paul Dirac.
The discovery of antimatter is attributed to the British physicist Paul Dirac. Though he didn't discover it. He discovered a theory about it, right? But I don't think they've actually found antimatter, right? I don't know. But he's also a smart motherfucker.
The Higgs boson, which was proposed by Peter Higgs.
Particle. Yeah.
Now let's go a little bit bigger, but not a great deal bigger. The atom. The model of the atom with a hard nucleus with the electrons flying around was essentially discovered by the British. And I'm being a little bit loose there because there is a famous New Zealander involved with this. But frankly,
Ernest
in those
Rutherford.
days, Kiwis were basically Brits. What about biology? Well, in my view, the two biggest advances in biology were both discovered by Brits. The first one is Charles Darwin's theory of evolution.
Right, yeah.
And then you have the discovery of the structure of DNA at Cambridge University.
Oh, the discovery of DNA is attributed to several scientists with significant contributions from James Watson, Francis Crick, Rosalind Franklin, and Maurice Wilkins. Those are some smart motherfuckers.
Such as DNA fingerprinting.
Sir Alec Jeffreys.
By the Brits. Now let's go back to more basic, very fundamental and possibly more important medicine. We have antiseptics, antibiotics.
Alexander Fleming was a Scottish bacteriologist who discovered the first antibiotic, penicillin, and I heard of that, yeah.
Vaccine.
Edward Jenner, an English physician, is known for developing the smallpox vaccine in the late 18th century, rabies, polio, and many others. Edward Jenner, smart motherfucker.
But let's go back to physics now. So we have Newton's laws of motion, Newton's laws of gravity.
Newton, of course.
Back onto the physics, the laws of optics and the way that radio waves
James Clerk Maxwell formulated Maxwell's equations, which described electromagnetism and predict the existence of electromagnetic waves like light.
The laws of electromagnetic propagation in signals and wires, Scotsman James Clerk Maxwell's. You don't have any mobile phones or computers or communication cables without Maxwell. And then we have electromagnetic induction from Michael Faraday's.
Heard of him? Michael Faraday was a British scientist known for his discoveries in electromagnetism and electrochemistry. I've heard of a Faraday cage. I think that's named after him. A Faraday cage or Faraday shield is an enclosure used to block some electromagnetic fields. A Faraday shield may be formed by a continuous covering of conductive material, or in the case of a Faraday cage, a mesh of such materials. Yeah, I used to work at a recording studio in New York, and in that same studio is where Stevie Ray Vaughan recorded. Legend has it that in the studio they had to build a Faraday cage around him and his guitar amp to keep the electromagnetic fields from making the guitar buzz, because the studio was essentially in Times Square. Like one wall of the studio he was using faced out to Times Square. It was also connected to a strip club, and one day I accidentally walked in there. There's like a shared stairwell with the strip club. If you go out the wrong door, the door leads out to the stage of the strip club. It was unlocked one day. I just got curious and walked out there. Now I'm on stage. Anyway, Faraday, smart motherfucker.
Basically, the whole backbone of the electricity system,
Right.
you owe it to the Brits. Or in mathematics, and there are a lot here, so I'm going to pick the really big one, which is the invention of calculus, yes. There was another guy called Leibniz who also invented it at the same time, but essentially Newtonian calculus is at the basis of a huge amount of advanced science of engineering. It's as fundamental as algebra and arithmetic. Now, this list is not complete. There are literally a zillion other things that the Brits have contributed to.
Did he say zillion?
There are literally a zillion other things that
He said literally a zillion other things. How much is a zillion? Zillion is not any specifically defined number. People started to use the term zillion simply as a joke, meaning some really unfathomably large number. Peter, that's not literal.
Now, without those advancements, our lives would be short, harsh, and frankly, just bloody horrible. The world's population would still be about 1 billion, which is what it was in about 1800, rather than the roughly 8 billion that it is today without that wonderful science and technology.
Oh.
Now, if you add up all the bad things that the Brits may have done, the Amritsar massacre, the Bengal famine, and all the other bad things that happened, albeit only occasionally considering the attitudes of the times. But even if you add all those up, it's not a drop in the bucket compared with what has been achieved and the lives that have saved.
All right.
How many lives, how many babies, children, were saved by antibiotics and antiseptics, clean water, or the uses of electricity, communications and transport?
Right.
Famines are effectively a thing of the past because, well, for one reason, we can shift food around from one place to another.
It still happens because greedy leaders take all the food and it doesn't get to the people.
Now, look, it turns out that I was born in England, and even though I'm an Aussie, so I am biased. But I don't think it makes sense to be proud of what your ancestors did or were unless there's some evidence that you carry on those ideas, values and traditions. But even if you don't measure up to those ancestors or other people's ancestors, it's just bad form not to appreciate what those people did for us.
Well, that's true. Yeah,
the contribution of the Brits was truly incredible, and we should all be grateful that they came along and did more than virtually any other group to pull humanity out of the appalling, difficult lives that existed before the 1800s. So, do you think the ledger for those bastard Brits, is it positive or negative?
I think it's a lot more complicated than that, Peter. Thanks for the inventions. We can learn from the bad stuff. We're all human. We're all the same. We're all cousins. Reef rebels. Hang on now. He says the Great Barrier Reef is fine. Thanks for all the inventions, you smart motherfuckers. This has been a really interesting video. Thank you all for watching it with me, and I'll see you next time. Later.